Welcome to Andy's Garage. I'm Andy Phillips. Today I'm going to show you how you can weld plastic with different vehicles, especially a lot of the more modern ones are using a lot of plastics and different things like that. Sometimes you may run into situations where it might crack or break and you might need to put it together. Super glue is not always the best option because, as you know, that can stain it, give it that foggy look. Different epoxies don't really hold it too strong. But when you use a plastic welder, at least with my experience, that's a nice strong bond. It makes it almost as if it was never broken before, just like if you're welding metal. So today I'm going to show you how to weld plastic. Let's go ahead and get started. What I have here that we're going to be looking at in the video is I have the kind of the little glove box surround and grip off of a Jeep Wrangler YJ. And you can see here, normally you have your glove box right here. You have the sides that come on, broke off on this side here. So that's what we're going to be putting back together and making that secure. Let me show you what's going to be needed in this video to be able to complete this. First thing, obviously, you are going to need a plastic welder. You can pick these up anywhere. This particular one I picked up at Harbor Freight. I think it was less than 20 bucks. And it's similar to a soldering iron, really, except you have this triangular kind of flat iron end on it instead of just a point like a soldering iron. That way you can use that for melting it and welding it. Then we do have some plastic welding rods right here. I have the gray ones. You can get them in different colors, but since we are dealing with a gray, we're going to use that. And then we do have a wire mesh. Don't always need that. However, if you're doing a bigger piece or if you're doing something really big like a bumper, things like that, you want to put that in there for extra reinforcement instead of just welding it just plain the way that it is. But let's head over to the piece and we'll take a look at it and start putting it together. As we wait for the little plastic welder to heat up properly, let me show you here what happened. So you can see how this is broken off. If we turn it this way, this is all one piece. You can see where this snapped off right here. So we're going to have to put it back together to get it right like that, to be on that angle. And that's where we're going to use the mesh right here to strengthen that bond, because we don't want this thing breaking off, because the glove box piece slides into this and then connects up in here, so we can't have that breaking off. You can sand these down a little bit if you want to clean it. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to jeopardize removing any of the structure of this and making it too short or messing it up. And show you right like that. That's how it snapped off. So it goes right here. So let's wait for that to finish heating up. Now, I am going to flash to another scene right now. I did have a plumbing pipe outside going to my pool that developed a crack. I believe when it was installed, it may have been cracked a little bit, and with the pressure of the water going through there, it was starting to split open and it was causing a leak. I was able to weld that as well. So let's flash to that scene while we wait for this to heat up, and I'll show you how we were able to fix that without using a mesh. PVC piping, very easy, welded that as well. Take a look. You can see the water dripping pretty quick here onto the filter canister, and look at that coming out. If we get a shot here on this side, you can clearly see that crack, and it looks like there was some kind of an impact at some point right there, but either way it's splitting open and dripping pretty quick. I turned the pump off so we can get the pressure out, but you can still hear the air wheezing through that crack. And no more water coming through though. So I went ahead and I cleaned this out real good and dried it so that way we can get it ready to weld it. Make sure that there's no moisture. It's all dried out. But you can still hear the air coming through, the pressure. So I have the welding is nice and heated up. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up the surface of the PVC. So we're going to take the welder and just kind of rub it across there, heat up the surface, melt it a little bit, get that crack a little bit sealed. And then now we're going to take our welding rod and we're going to start melting that onto the iron itself. And then I'm also going to then press it onto the PVC and into that crack so we can melt it into that crack as we're melting the surface and just kind of getting all of that put together. And we'll start pressing that down. And what you want to do is, as you're doing this, you want to be pressing the head of the welder down against the plastic so you have the the welding rod and you're pressing that firmly against the plastic surface that you're welding, so that way you're melting the rod into the surface of the plastic that you're welding as well. So you're making it all into one. And you can see from this angle here. And then now I'm just melting a thin surface over everything just to go over it one more time, make sure everything's good. But it looks like we've got it sealed. And we'll just kind of blend that out real good and smooth it out. Did burn it a little bit. As you can see, we are using a white rod, but it is getting a little bit burned. But I wanted to make sure that we really had that melted back together. And then here's a shot up close. You can see how I've welded that up pretty good. I may have caked it up a little bit thick, but I wanted to make sure that not only did we get it in the crack and melt that together, but also went over the whole area and just kind of smoothed it out. It's nice and dry now. You can hear that. So let's go ahead and turn the pump back on. And as the pressure is building up, as we look here, nothing dripping out. That's a good sign. As we saw earlier, it was dripping pretty quick. That's nice and clear. Come underneath, no sign of any moisture or bubbling up or anything. We don't even hear that pressure leaking out. Still nice and dry. It's now the evening hours, so it's been on all day. The pump has, with the pressure going through. We come here and take a look again. Still nothing. Nice and dry. And let's cup underneath here. And nothing. No drops or moisture or anything falling out of there. You can see the split here. And if we get a closer look, let me turn the light on, you can see it. You can see how right here it broke on this angle, and then here it's on this angle. So when we put it together, you can see. So it's not just going to lay on there, but rather this has to tuck in here, and then this one comes up top like that. And this is the right angle because you can see down there on that end, that's how this is laying in place. So if we can keep it like that, then we can, I'm going to cut a piece of the mesh so we can start laying that in place, and then we'll start welding it. And we need to be careful because we do have a little knob right there where the glove box slides over. We don't want to cover that. So if we have this in place, I'm just going to use some snippers here. We're going to go probably just a little piece right here. So we're going to come like this. And really all you're doing is just reinforcing that bond. So you don't need to go overboard with it. Now obviously if you're doing a bigger piece, like I mentioned, you can use it on bumpers, things like that, then you would obviously go bigger. But that should be fine because we can then put it here. Let's see. Trim it down a little bit more. And we have this like that. So we'll have it, and I'll get a close-up. That's how I'm going to have it laid on, and then we'll weld on top of it. And you can see it. And then we'll bend the angle a little more sharp to match as well, but that's kind of what we're looking at. So you can see that little point right there. We don't want to be covering that because the glove box piece slides right over that and then gets secured in. Our welder is heated up and ready to go. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to bend this more sharply. We're going to get a close-up here as we start welding that together. What I'm going to start with, we're going to take this off. We have the right angle. I'm going to do a little bit of welding first to make that connection, and then we're going to melt this on top of it and then weld around it. Because if I put that on first, then I don't want to jeopardize this sliding out of place. We want to make sure that this is right on point like we have it right now. We have it right where it needs to be. So I'm going to now take the welder you want to take the welding rod, we're going to put it right up against the plastic, and then we're going to come down here with the iron and just slowly melt it on. So we'll melt it onto the iron first, because we need to get this piece stuck on here first, which it is not, obviously. So we're going to bring this on. Want to be very careful you don't get burned, but we'll do this. And then we'll come back and add the mesh. We'll let it dry a little bit. You want to clean up some of the burn debris. Let it cool down to harden that joint, and then we'll apply the mesh next. Next, we're going to apply this, because this is going to strengthen that bond. And we're going to take our welding rod and weld through onto that, and that'll help reinforce that angle. We're going to be spreading it out as we're applying it. So we're kind of working it out, and then we're going to come back and smooth it all out. This isn't how it's going to look, because we need it to be nice and flush. Okay. All right, so everything has been put back. Let's put this over here, get this out of the way. I'm going to get a close-up so you can see how it looks, but that thing is solid. Solid as could be. We have a nice clean angle. If need be, you can go over and sand that a little bit if you want to clean it up. I don't need to for this application, but let me get a close-up so you can see it. Here's a shot of it here. You can see a little bit of the mesh there. I could probably clean that up a little bit, but only if needed. I'm not going to go overboard with that because this is going to be hidden. But you can see how that looks. And then let's flip this over so you can see the other side as well. Bring this here. There's obviously the good one. This is the bad one here. But look at that. This thing is nice and sturdy, just like that one is. That one's just as well. And the cool thing is when this is turned this way, the glove box is going to mount under here. That gets tucked under there. You're not even going to see any of this. And that right there, that was already on there, that scuff. But look. Solid. If this would have been glued with an epoxy or super glue, it would hold it a little bit. But depending on the plastic, because some of those plastics, if they have the kind of that greasiness to it, it will not bond to it properly anyway. I don't know what kind of plastic this is, but either way, I like this better because you don't have any of the cloudiness. And I'll get a close up here, but you don't have any cloudiness or residue of an epoxy. It's all nice and welded together. And look at that. Perfect. This is the good one. We come over here. You can see a little bit of the hairline crack right there. You could do the gray, try to blend it, but you run the risk of burning it. And then we have that thing there, which I don't know what that is. That's some damage from something else, but a little bit right there. And you can see a little bit of the mesh. I could come back and clean that up, but I don't think that's even going to be seen. The glove box is going to go over that, but we pull back here. There's a better shot. Perfect. Okay, now that wraps up this video, a brief video on how to weld plastic. As mentioned already, when you're dealing with automotive vehicles, whether it be on some of the body panel pieces, inside the vehicle, the bumpers, different things, they're different plastics, rubbers, things like that, the hardened plastics, and they break, they crack, people trying to use epoxies and things. I found that using a plastic welder is better because, as we saw here, it makes it really solid, and as we saw, you can reinforce it with a mesh, which I'd highly recommend if you're dealing with bigger pieces. As we saw earlier on the PVC pipe that we did, we didn't have to. We were just able to fill that crack and blend it back together, and that fixed it. Depending on what plastics you're using, it's a good idea to get, like I have here, is a whole pack. It's a 50-piece pack of plastic welding rods. They come in different colors. It comes colored, white, and gray. You can get them in black. When you're dealing with body things on your vehicle, blacks and grays, whites, things like that, you should be safe. If not, you may have to touch it up if it's a part of the vehicle that's been painted. Afterwards, sand it nice and smooth, paint it. But you want to do the mesh and any of the welding on the inside as we did here. That way it doesn't show. Sometimes you may have to do it on the outside, but in this case here, didn't need to. It looks better that way. That way from the outside, there's no evidence of any kind of repairs that were done or any breaks. Same with your vehicle. If you're able to get on the inside, it's better to do the welding on the inside. And if you need to do a little bit of patching up on the exterior, you can. And if you need to touch up paint, you may have to do that. But that wraps up this video. I hope it was informative for you. I hope it helped you out with maybe any issues you might be dealing with your vehicles or even just around the house with plastic that needs to be bonded back together. Please send me any questions and comments. I would love to hear from you. And as always, I appreciate all the support. So please like the video, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time.